Hi friends, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about factoring trinomials, where this time our a doesn't equal 1, it equals something other than 1. So we have something in the front. In our last video, we learned how to factor if this was just a 1 in the front. And so in this video, we're going to learn how to factor if it's not. Now, there are a couple different ways of doing this. There's the factor by grouping method or the slide and divide method. Those are the most popular. I'm going to show you the factor by grouping method first, so you can see what that looks like. And that is helpful when you get into polynomials in Algebra 2. But then the slide and divide method seems to be really popular as well. So here's what you do for factor by grouping. And we'll write that grouping. Okay, so we take 3 times 8, which is 24. And we write all of our factors of 24. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. Okay. So what I'm looking for is, now the second thing I have to do are my signs. Remember, we look at the last sign. This tells us same signs. This tells us negative, negative. So I'm going to be needing a negative, negative that gives me negative 14. Well, if you look here, I've got a negative 2 and a negative 12. So I'm going to rewrite this. This is now 3k squared. And instead of negative 14k, I'm going to write negative 2k minus 12k plus 8. All right, so what we're gonna do is this is now like a 4-parter there, right? So we're gonna factor this by grouping. We're gonna group this guy. We're gonna group this guy. All right, so we look at that first one and we see, what do those two chunks have in common? We have we have a k in common, and we're left with 3k minus 2. Okay, we're gonna bring down that sign that's in the middle there. And what does 12 and 8 have in common? We have a 4. And what does that leave us with? 4 times 3 will give us 3k. And then be very careful. You don't want to bring your plus down because it is a minus 2. Because negative 4 times negative 2 will give us positive 8. That's the number one mistake I see. At the end of this part, what you're supposed to do is ask yourself, do these two things look exactly the same? If they do, you have done this correctly. If they don't, I guarantee you messed up that sign by accidentally just bringing down a plus sign, and you need to change that sign. So once these two things are exactly the same, you have your factors. You have this guy right here, which is k minus 4. And then you have this thing, which is 3k minus 2. So you'll see, if you see it written like this, that's sort of our distribution method. So that's one way of factoring. That's called our grouping. Our other method is our slide and divide method. So slide and divide. Divide, I can't spell today. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take that 3, we're gonna multiply it by 35. So 3 times 35 gives us 105. So we're gonna rewrite this entire thing as x squared plus 8x minus 105, okay? Now, I always forget, because we multiplied, we're going to have to divide. Now, I always forget that part, so I draw myself an arrow so I don't forget. Now, 105, we're going to need to do all of our factors of 105. I'm going to do it over here because I didn't give myself enough room. So we have 105, 1 times 105. We have 3 times 35. We have 5 times 21. We have, let's see what else we got. After 5 comes 6, not 6. 105 divided by 7. Yes, 15. 7 and 15. After that comes 8. 8 doesn't go into it. 9 doesn't go into it. 10, 11, 12. No, we're good. So those are all of our factors. So we're gonna factor this thing just like we normally would. So we're gonna say x, and put our bubbles, our x's. This tells us different signs. So plus, minus. I need a positive and a negative that gives me positive 8. Well, if I do a negative 7 and a positive 15, that will give me a positive 8. Now, remember I said I always forget to divide. That's why I drew myself that little arrow. Because we multiplied 3 times 35 here, we have to divide. So we're going to divide this guy by 3, divide this one by 3. X plus 15 over 3 is just 5. And then we get x minus 7 over 3. Now, when you're factoring, you can't have a fraction. And so the way that we fix that is we take that 3 and we boot it to the front. So it's x plus 5, and then 3x minus 7. You have factored this guy. Here's why. If I did x minus 7 over 3 equals 0, I would get x equals 7 over 3. Okay? If I did 3x minus 7 equals 0, and I added 7 to both sides, I would get 3x equals 7. Divide both sides by 3, and you can see that I would get x equals 7 over 3. And you see how these two things are the same? So that's why this thing is the equivalent. That's why these two things are the equivalent of each other. You just have to boot that guy to the front. So this is your final form of that answer. Just remember, no fractions allowed. All right, we're going to practice that slide and divide method just because I think it works faster for most kids. But if you find factoring by grouping to be more efficient, you can absolutely do that. So let's take a look at this next one here. We see we have 5 times 9, so 5p squared plus 14p plus 9. So 5 times 9 gives us 45. So we have p squared plus 14p plus 45. I always forget to divide, so I'm going to throw a little arrow there to remind me. Now we can factor. We've got p and p. This tells us same signs. This tells us positive, positive. So plus, we have 1 times 45. We have 3 times 15, 5 times 9. I need a positive that gives me positive 14. If we do positive 5, positive 9, that gives us positive 14. Excellent. Now, this arrow is to remind me, hey, you multiplied, you got to divide. So we're going to divide this by 5, divide this by 5. What we end up with is p plus 5 over 5 is 1. And then p plus 9 over 5. We are not allowed fractions, so we're going to take that 5 and boot it to the front. So p plus 1, and then 5p plus 9, kablam, that is your answer. All right, let's do one more of these. Again, slide and divide method. We've got 6 times 4 gives us 24. So we have x squared minus 5x minus 24. I have multiplied. I don't want to forget to divide, so I'm going to draw my little arrow down here. I should have gone down a little further. There we go. X. This tells me different signs, so I don't care about that first one. So plus, minus. We've got 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. I need a positive and negative that gives me negative 5. If I do positive 3, negative 8, that will give me negative 5. So positive 3, negative 8. Now, I multiplied by 6, so I have to divide by 6. So this gives me x plus, and we're going to reduce our fractions here. We get 1/2. And then x minus, and if we cut both those guys in half, we get 4/3. So this time we have 2 fractions. And so what we need to do is boot those denominators to the front. So we get 2x plus 1, and we get 3x minus 4. And that is our factored form. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. Comment below or email me, whatever. Hopefully you found this helpful. We'll see you next time.